what we have here. So what would I pick pretty much just looking at this, how I would pick balance. I would definitely pick wild charge. The bounding backwards sort of thing, if you think of it like disengage, I mean, we don't really know how it's going to work per se, but being able to get around mechanics is a gigantic plus for raid fights. I mean, movement speed is also really good, but the thing is, a lot of times in fights, you're just standing still. I mean, it might help you run out of something a few times, pick up a little extra damage, but say if I could ignore an entire mechanic by jumping, backwards over it, turning my back and, going over a ledge or something like that, then it makes a gigantic difference. And this right here, it teleports you forward, but the problem is it puts you in cat form, and as Moonkin, you're going to have to go back into balance form. So that would be my first option at first glance. Yep, you can bash. I might pick that one too for PvP. Another one is I would just pick renewal, because the same thing if we're talking about PvE progression, being able to have like a last stand, or I guess a last stand sort of thing, sort of like a health stone. You'd say that you have that much can save you. Say you take madness for example, you get hit by the parasite, all of a sudden you're about to get slapped by the tentacle. You can heal yourself up 30%, and you're good to go. So it's an instant cast heal, and you don't have to shift out of form or into another form. Something like this would be a PvP talent. Nature Swiftness has always been, sure to be useful as Boomkin for PvP, but has no real big purposes in um, PvE. Siren Ward is more of a utility heal. It would be like a Shadow Priest casting a shield, which is okay, but unless you really need it for a strategy, I would pick the 30% heal over it. Same thing, so let's go down to the next one. We have Typhoon, Mass Entanglement, and Fairy Swarm. So with this one, if it doesn't deal damage and it just slows, that's a very good PvP talent to have a instant cast slow. Mass Entanglement is probably good for, say, arenas more than it would be battlegrounds or anything, because you could use that as a hard CC on their entire team. I could see it being used in PvE on fights with ads or something. It could be useful. But more or less, if Typhoon does damage still, you would just pick Typhoon because it is a good burst AoE. I'd say on like 5 or 6 plus targets. Any questions so far? What do you guys think? I mean, really, they're all fight dependent so far, so you never really know. Mass Entanglement or Typhoon could both have their uses. Yeah, Typhoon is very buggy right now. I really hope that they fix it. Having to cast it twice and the animation going off is really bothering me. It really bothers me in PvP and PvE. Alright, so let's go on to level 60 ones. So, level 60 really quick. Soul of the Forest. They just added this one, so I haven't really looked at it or done the theory crafting for it. So let's just kind of read it together, and maybe we can try and figure it out. When lunar eclipse ends, you gain 20 solar energy. When solar eclipse ends, you gain 20 lunar energy. So basically what that's going to do is, when you get the end of your bar, here, can you guys see my game? Yeah, you can see my game. Okay, so look at my balance power tracker. Say like when you reach the middle, it'll instantly boost you up 20. So you only have to take a couple more casts into solar, is from how I'm reading it. So basically that could count as a little bit of extra haste because it's saving you a cast that's non-eclipsed. So you'll have higher Nature's Grace uptime from it as well. So I mean, it sounds good. You would really have to do the math in it to figure out how much it's actually offering you. But the big thing is you also get a chance at a 3-minute. So this would be like, say, this would be consistent DPS, Soul of the Forest. Then I would use Incarnation for a fight where I want burst DPS, which you can change on the fly. Activates a super shapeshifting form for 30 seconds. Improved Moonkin form that also halves lunar and solar power generation while in an eclipse and doubles it when not in eclipse. So this one, you're going to get 30 seconds of pretty much what Soul of the Forest is helping you with. But say there's a fight where there's a damage amplification, this is what you would go with. Something like that. Trees, one thing about the trees that they haven't really said much about is right now their damage coefficient sucks for the most part, and you all know that. But they said they're going to be giving trance abilities depending on the spec. So, maybe Moonkin Trance will Moonfire. Maybe Resto Trance will cast Rejuves or something. So that's kind of up for grabs so far, so we don't know how they work. So we're going to go with Incarnation. 20 energy is one cast. Pretty much. It's a cast in a quarter for going from solar to lunar. Going from lunar to solar, it's one cast. They do make trance, actually trance do scale with spell power. They scale by a 10% ratio, but it's actually, that's like very, very low. So moving on to 75. These ones are all about, say, stuns or snares utilities. So this pretty much is just, depending on the fight, if you can use it in some sort of way to help you out. Disorients all enemies 10 yards for 4 seconds, so you can pretty much do like a fear, sort of AoE fear, which is going to be really, really awesome in Battlegrounds. This is the one I'm going to go with just because it sounds really fun for now, where it pulls everything into you within 15 yards, so you can group up a bunch of AoE mobs and then AoE them down. I'm going to be using that for leveling, 100%. Then Mighty Bash, pretty much if you need a stun or not. I mean, that's pretty simple. That you can use in Moonkin form. This one down here. The only problem with this Dream of Sonaris, with how they've been changing it, is it only gives the option to use it with Nourish or Healing Touch. Well, so they say regrowth, but the problem is balanced druids do not get regrowth or nourish, so you can only use healing touch. So it's pretty much out of reach for balanced druids to make any use out of it. So it's pretty much a resto talent right now, the way they have it geared toward. What it's supposed to do is, if you're, say we're a hybrid class, I'm a Moonkin, I need to help my raid out, and I need to heal somebody to keep them alive, like cast a healing touch. What it does is it doesn't tax me for doing that. So I can pop out and cast a healing touch, and then when I go back into Boomkin form to use a Wrath or Star Surge or whatever, the damage is buffed. And then vice versa. You can attack on your healer and get buffed healing. The one thing I'm going to go with that we've all been kind of getting really, really excited about is Heart of the Wild. This is a amazing talent. It is on a very, very long cooldown, so you're pretty much just going to get it once a fight. But what it does is it makes you the master race. You become the master race. You can basically you become two specs in one for 45 seconds. So I'm a balanced druid. What it does is it gives me, read out loud. Healing spells generate lunar or solar energy and benefit from lunar and solar energy. In addition, grants 50% of intellect as energy and 100% of hit rating, expertise rating, and increases armor while in bear form. So what happens is, as a balanced druid, I can go bear and taunt the boss and have as much base mitigation as a tank does. So pretty much I can save the raid with Heart of the Wild if a tank dies and become a tank for 45 seconds. A healer dies, we only like 3 healing a fight, I can use Heart of the Wild and I become a healer because my healing is buffed and also gets me lunar energy. So you pretty much become whatever. And it's the same for the other way around. If you're a feral druid, what happens is your agility becomes intellect, so you have more spell power, and you get the hit rating as well as the armor, because remember they're changing feral and guardian to two different specs. Feral druids will not actually have the armor and such for bear form to tank. Guardians have that for bear form. So what happens is as ferals, you can go bear, you can tank the boss again, and you can also pop out and use healing spells and actually do a decent amount of range damage. So say there's a boss like Blood Queen, where she goes up in the air and you need range DPS, you can pop this and you can do as much damage as, a mid-tier balanced druid. And it's pretty much the same all the way down, like I don't really have to explain each of them. It just gives you everything the other specs have. I think it's the strongest for balanced druid though, honestly. And then disentanglement, this is just so you can remove roots when you shift or whatnot. It's basically just a PvP talent. Unless there is a their fight where you need to shift out of roots, and you can't do that anymore because they took it away, as you know, from base shifting, and only for say Moonkin form and feral. Like you can't go travel form, etc. And that's the talents. This is my talent spec for when MOP comes out in beta. This is what I will be leveling as. You love me, now let's see some League of Legends. Yeah, pretty much as Boomkin, you can go kitty DPS for 45 seconds if you want, and you'll do a decent amount of damage. Um, the only problem is that I see it strongest for Moonkin because as a Moonkin spec, you have Moonkin form, and you can go into cat form and bear form. And the problem is this feral druid. They're not making Moonkin form base, so you have to stay in caster. Let's see, there are some other ones down here too, just added abilities. Symbiosis, we were talking about this earlier actually.